Hey, Tim Lerch here. Today I thought I would address the subject of scales, modes, arpeggios, music theory as it applies to improvised music, particularly jazz music or blues and jazz, which is my area of interest. I think on the internet we hear a lot of different things, and I want to try and help in my own way to clarify this issue. Sometimes it's just clickbait, all the two scales you need, and don't use modes or never play scales or any of that kind of jive. I think it's mostly just to get your attention and get you to click. I don't particularly like that style, that approach. So if you found this video, it's because you're interested in the subject of how to incorporate the knowledge of scales, modes, arpeggios, chord scales, all these various kinds of teaching methods, and actually use it in your playing to either learn what to play or how to use scales and melodic information over harmonic information. I think that's what it boils down to a great extent, not to forget about rhythmic things. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about this because I think it might be helpful. And hopefully it's not too rambly. I'll try and play some pretty things along the way so you can hear what some of this stuff might sound like. So let's say we learn that in order to play over a chord progression that has a key center in the key of G, say, for instance, someone would say to you, well, just play a G major scale and use your ear, and you might play things like... So maybe you would improvise like that. But then where does that come from? Does that come from the scale? Is the scale giving me that information? I don't know if it is. I think the proper way to view this is that if you were to assess a chord progression as being diatonic to a particular scale, which many chord progressions are, mostly, if not completely diatonic to a particular scale, then I think it would be a good idea to know what that scale is and know how to play it in various fingerings all over the fingerboard. That's a given, right? If you want to play something in the key of G and you don't know how to play a G major scale, then you might have trouble, unless you have a brilliant ear. And of course, we always hear this, well, Wes Montgomery didn't blah, blah, blah. Django Reinhardt didn't blah. Well, guess what? You're on the internet looking at a video about how to improvise, and that means you aren't going to be able to do what Wes Montgomery did or what Django Reinhardt did. It means you need some help, right? And I don't blame you for that. I mean, we all need help. So if we're learning how to play, or if we're trying to figure out how to play, we use everything that we can use. So we learn how to play some scales. But then here's where we have to really make a distinction, is that the scale itself doesn't tell you what to play. It tells you the pitches that can be utilized in a way, but it also doesn't suggest what to do with those pitches, and or how many other pitches besides the 7 that are in the scale can be used to good effect. Okay, so that means that the onus is on all of us, whoever we are, even if we know that over a diatonic chord progression in the key of G, we would use a G major scale as our basis of what choices to make. And if we know 5 or 7 fingerings of a G major scale, that might be helpful. It might not be helpful. It might give us option anxiety to an extent that we can't do anything. So the point is the scale is only the beginning. It's the raw material of what we're going to do. So if I have a scale that might sound like this, I can play those notes. But I can also play I can add a lot of notes in there that have interesting sounds. And I don't need to just stick with a G major scale over a chord progression in the key of G, right? That's only just the slimmest of guidelines. And then here's the most important thing. Whatever you use as your foundational material, you must create melodies with that material. And there is no substitute for that. Now, it's up to you to decide what a melody is. Now, this that might be considered a beautiful melody by some people's ears. Other people might say, oh, it's just a scale going down. What's so good about that? Well, look into the music of the past, and you might see there's plenty of wonderful songs that have a scale going down. And so that it's not necessarily, bad to play a scale, okay? But every musician is given the opportunity to create using the raw materials. We can play in the key, very, very plain and simple. Or we can play more chromatically. All of those things are possible, but it's up to the musician to create that melody. Now, you might ask, where do these melodies come from? How did you learn those melodies, man? Well, you listen to the music that you love, and you live inside of it, and you absorb those melodies. Maybe you can transcribe some, but I got to tell you, I've heard many, many people who can transcribe things and play them beautifully, but they don't take the next step of actually understanding what they've transcribed. And so they can play beautifully as long as they're playing something that's somebody else's material that they've memorized. But when it comes time for them to play their own ideas, it's not as interesting or perhaps even as good as what the material they transcribed. So then there's a gap between what you can do yourself and what someone else has done before. Every one of us, no matter how we do it, have to come up with our own rich melodic vocabulary that we believe in, that's ours, that we begged, borrowed, or stole, or invented, or whatever it might be. There's no way around that. So you can't just go to music school and learn all the formulas and then come out saying, okay, well, I know what scale to play over what chords, so I'm done. That's just the very, very beginning. So even if you learned all of the modes and all of the scales and all of the arpeggios and all of the various substitutions and the greatest things ever, and you memorized the Lydian chromatic concept, and you can tell somebody on the internet what scale to play over what chord, that doesn't really matter if you can't turn it into a melody, if you can't turn it into something that is pleasurable to listen to with our ears. Because music happens in a sound world, an aural world. It doesn't happen in a mathematical conception world. It doesn't happen on paper. It doesn't happen in a theory book. It actually happens in the world of sound when we play our instruments. So what I recommend is learn everything you think you need to learn. Learn how to play major scales, minor scales, melodic minor, harmonic minor. Learn what those things are. Learn how to arpeggiate all the harmony in a key. Learn how to play arpeggios of all different chord qualities. Learn how to decorate those arpeggios. There's all sorts of methods, enclosures and double chromatic blah blah blahs, right? But if you're sitting there when the band on the bandstand and the downbeat hits, and you're thinking of, oh my God, I think I'm going to play an enclosure now, or I'm going to play a double chromatic blah blah blah, you are screwed, because that's not where music happens. You have to shut all that stuff off and play what you own. You have to own it. You have to have it in your heart and in your mind. Now, that means that when you're studying music, that's one thing, and you can study it, learn about all the different possibilities, try and get them under your fingers, try and learn the sounds. can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody come to me and say, I learned all my modes and I learned all my scales. And I say, oh, you learned all your modes? That's great. Sing a Dorian mode. Can't do it. Sometimes clever guys will start to sing a major scale and they'll just not sing the first note, and then they'll open their mouth on the second note because they understand that that's supposedly theoretically what a Dorian mode is a displaced major scale. But I got to tell you, modes won't help you if you don't know what they sound like. The modes aren't fingerings, okay? We can learn fingerings, but to learn a mode means we have to learn the sound of a mode. You have to be able to hum or make a melody in your mind that is inclusive of or reflective of the material that's in a mode, if you want to play modal music. On the other hand, if you're playing tonal music, you don't need to think about modes because you probably are thinking way too much if you do that. So if we're playing a 2-5-1 in the key of C, nobody has to say anything about a mode then, because we can play chord tones, right? Or we can play scales starting from various positions, right? But I don't need to play a Dorian mode, if you consider a Dorian mode a displaced C major scale starting on the second degree. I don't need to play that over a D minor chord if I have melodic ideas in my mind that I actually hear. Right? Now, someone could come back later and say, oh, look, he's playing a mode there. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about anything really except the sound I want to hear. And I think that's what it boils down to, is no matter how you learn, whether you're one of the guys that say, oh, you don't need all that crap, you just play what you hear. Well, if you don't hear anything, then you're just going to play nothing, right? So somewhere along the line, you got to hear something. Somewhere along the line, you have to inform your mind what you want to make into music. Then you have to learn how, on your instrument, how to make those sounds come out. Well, one way to do that is to inform your fingers and your mind simultaneously, learn how to play scales, start decorating the scales, find melodies that you like out of those scales. You don't have to create a whole music system from, out of whole cloth. You can build on what has gone on before. But on the other end of the scale is the guy who might know all this formulas but can't really play either because he's got too many formulas in his mind or her mind, and there's just a bunch of mathematics going on. Even if they're playing cool notes, that may not sound like music or feel like music because it's not really a human experience. It's sort of more of an intellectual game. Now, on every end of the spectrum, music has been recorded by people who believe that way, and some of it might be good, some of it might not be good. But mostly, since you're here on the internet trying to learn about things, I would recommend that you use whatever you can use to learn how to move your fingers, train your ear to hear. Use all of those things, but don't get hung up on them. And realize that when you're practicing, you're doing one activity, and when you're playing, you're doing another activity. It really is true, because nobody really wants to hear you practicing something on the bandstand or in a public performance. Actually, what we want to hear is we want to hear a real person playing real music that they hear in their minds and feel in their hearts, right? And if you can combine those two things, and there's very many players that are more intellectual or less intellectual, that's okay. You got to find out who you are and what you do. But playing a scale over a chord because it's a formula is not enough. It's only the beginning. It's what you might practice in the practice room. But when you want to use that material, you have to take that information and turn it into something. Same way as we turn something like I'm doing right now with my intellect and my voice and my vocabulary. I'm trying to convey an idea. I'm trying to convince the listener that I have something interesting to say, and then have them hear it and enjoy it and learn from it. Same way when we play music. We don't just recite the alphabet. We don't just recite things other people have told us. We actually have to come up with something ourselves, say it in our own way, and for it to be authentic and believable. So, learn your scales, learn your modes, learn your arpeggios to the extent that you want to and need to, and then play music. Have it come from inside of your being. So you have to imagine this music. Right? And your fingers will follow that. Your fingers will go where your mind is sending them if you connect the dots, right? And we don't play by eye. Last time I looked, I'm going to make a little joke here. Last time I looked, your eyes don't make any music, okay? So if you're stuck on playing fingering patterns, you're not listening to the music. So close your eyes, look away. Don't look at this stupid thing. It's just a thing that we hold in our hands. We push things down and we make sounds. Live in the world of sound. That's what I recommend. All right, thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. And subscribe, do all those stupid YouTube things, and then you'll find out about where I'm coming from. And you can visit me at my website, timlerch.com. You can become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. You can see me on Instagram. You can do all those things, okay? And I probably won't make too many more videos like this because I think that this is the kind of video that creates a lot of controversy and stirs a lot of people up. Maybe there's limited benefit to them. But anyway, I'm just interested in helping people make music, actually make music that's real to them and authentic to them. And I think that's the way to do it. You take the information and then you turn that information into something personal, some musical adventure that has melody and harmony and rhythm, that is something you believe in, that comes from you. Right? I don't think we need to hear anybody playing along with a transcription anymore. I don't think we need to hear somebody playing, 24 bars of a memorized pattern anymore. I think what we need to hear human beings making music, right? Whether it's a minute long on Instagram or whether it's an actual performance in a club somewhere, or if it's a recording on a CD or in the cloud, it doesn't matter. This world needs people to make actual music, not just copy other people, not just show that they can cop a style or whatever. No. Find your own way. It's hard. But, music is creative. And if you're not creative, then what are you doing? So realize that it's an opportunity for you to be creative. That's what music is. And share something that's real and true in your own heart. All right. Tim Lerch, see you later.